with a growing debate over how to stop what President Biden is calling the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Take a look at this new satellite imagery from yesterday. It shows Russian military vehicles and tents at an airfield in Belarus. There are also fresh reports of Russian vehicles over the border in the breakaway parts of eastern Ukraine. President Biden has hit Russia with new sanctions, and other nations have joined in as well to prevent more conflict, they hope. Mr. Biden says there could be even harsher sanctions if Russia fails to stop its aggression. We have a team of correspondents covering the crisis, but we're going to begin with Nancy Cordes at the White House for us. Nancy, good morning. President Biden calling this the first tranche.
Why wouldn't the U.S. call this an invasion? Wouldn't they be all over this to hype up the war hogs? The reason why what the United States has said leading up to Russia moving in peacekeeping troops within Ukrainian borders is because partially, I think, they wanted to cut off Russia's strategic interests. They wanted to fucking undermine they wanted to undermine Russia at a global scale. They wanted to stop Russia from having any sort of like additional trade opportunities with Europe. Nord Stream 2 is obviously the pipeline that we've talked about regularly, even before this conflict arose. So that is the reason. That's something that the United States has never wanted, okay? The United States does not want Russia to give more gas to Germany and also Europe. But then also, Russia does want to, for a multitude of reasons, Russia does want to expand its territory, okay? Or rather, build more defensive positions in areas, right? So that was the reason why they pushed the war is imminent shit.
7 months.
Now when Russia actually did move forward and call out the US and Western world's bluff and actually put troops inside of Donbas, now they are backing away from saying this was like an imminent invasion. And even the sanctions themselves have been relatively targeted. They haven't been like all out, removing Russia from SWIFT, all out sanctions that stop Russia from, for example, getting microchips and strategically important things that they would get from their trade partners. You know what I mean? It's just like Russian central bank, a couple oligarchs at the top, which is still significant, of course, but not the degree of which they could not anywhere near what they could actually sanction if they truly wanted to turn these sanctions into a really devastating scenario for the Russian economy. So now part of that is because they'll say this is just the beginning of the sanctions and they want to have more. They don't want to fucking stack the deck this hard. Okay. The other reason is because I think, like I said, they want to still continue to have a possible diplomatic solution here.
Why don't you Eldon some bitches?
Everyone says World War III, but who else is even on Russia's side? It seems like it's just everyone versus Russia, not quite an Axis versus ally situation. I mean, when we say World War III, we don't mean literally like states coming together and fighting against like allies versus Axis. There's China, but ultimately it doesn't even matter because it's a nuclear superpower. So there is no World War III is just nuclear holocaust. When people say World War III, we mean like nuclear holocaust. That's it. There's no There's no end game other than nuclear holocaust in that circumstance, which is what people want to avoid, which is precisely why you have to be careful about these sorts of things, right? It's like you fake the fight with your foe in public for clout and money, but then your foe got actually mad, but you didn't want to really fight him because you never actually intended to. I mean, it's a little bit more than that. I don't think America could actually fight Russia, and Russia could actually fight America because of the reasons that we just stated. It's part of the reason why they also don't want like full-blown. They will dangle NATO partnership in front of Ukraine to goad Ukraine into thinking that they actually have a reasonable allegiance, a reasonable assurance that they will join NATO, when none of the fucking NATO countries are going to allow Ukraine to ever join NATO for what you are experiencing currently, what you're watching unfold in front of your eyes. And that's the annoying part of this process, which I've been saying since fucking day one, which is they are using Ukraine like a weapon against Russia to annoy Russia and to intimidate Russia, but they don't give a fuck about the Ukrainian people in this circumstance, and they're treating them like the Kurdish militias in the Middle East, for example. Okay? That's precisely what's going on in Ukraine, and that's the shittiest part about this conflict, is that it's just like their lives are getting fucking ruined, okay? Their economy is getting even more ruined. You're moving further and further away from neutralization talks. You're moving further away from like de-escalation and diplomatic solutions to this conflict, which will inevitably happen. And ultimately, Ukraine is losing more territory as well as a consequence of that. So it's a very, very weird thing that it's a very weird thing that the United States is doing, or a really fucked up thing that the United States is doing.
"23 months with the best community on the internet. Thank you,
Anyway.
Hasan. Hassel.
It's simple. If Ukraine would join NATO, it would suddenly turn into a global conflict since Russia would be in war with half the world, and Europe knows this. Putin as well. Yeah, Putin as well. Exactly. So basically, everyone assumed Russia wouldn't invade and World War III was off the table, which is why it was easy to poke Russia is going to invade as a tactic, the foreign policy poker game. Then Putin invaded. Hopefully, this is a lesson that anyone might think war maybe, but it wouldn't go nuclear because...
I hate myself.
Like, people don't listen. Biden keeps saying they will back NATO countries and Ukraine isn't part of NATO, so I guess Biden doesn't care now that Russia has troops on the ground. Yeah, Biden has also stated that he's not even going to fucking send in troops, even if American embassy members or American citizens are captured or hurt by Russian soldiers. That's why they tried to force an evacuation out of Ukraine over and over again. And the Ukrainian government was like, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean evacuate Americans? Wait, hold up. It's not that bad. Chill the fuck out. They literally fucking evacuated citizens ahead of time so that there wouldn't be any sort of additional conflict between, like, Russian troops and Russian troops and American citizens that are in Ukraine. Now, of course, there are still obviously American citizens in Ukraine. But it's counterproductive to claim that Ukraine is just being used by US and has no autonomy. What do you mean by that? I mean, Ukraine is understandably and justifiably fearful of Russia expanding into its country, as it has done so far. Okay? We can have a conversation about whether those people, whether the interests of those people on the ground in Crimea matter or not. But ultimately, the Ukrainian fears of Russia doing what it's done to Georgia, for example, and numerous other places in its immediate reach, is reasonable. That's a reasonable fucking fear that Ukraine has. This is part of the reason why they're like, we have two options here. Either we deal with the West, get some fucking sweet loans as a consequence of that makes us look good, especially in leadership, makes us very rich, especially in leadership, okay, and maybe even join NATO so that we'll have full blown, we'll have the full throated support of all European countries, okay, or all of the NATO countries, which is not going to happen. Or we have to fucking deal with Russia, which is fine. And I think that is what you're supposed to do in that situation. You have to build a separate neutralization agreement with Russia. You have to be able to, if you truly want to survive in this situation, your over-reliance on the West will hurt you in the long run. It's just the truth. Biden's goal was just to freeze Europe's commercial agreements in relationship with Russia as much as possible, aka Nord Stream 2. At this point, USA's mission is accomplished. It's true. Yikes. Become a puppet to Russia. Yeah, no, autonomy is good in the long run. I don't agree with you. Wait, what? No, Ukraine deserves to be a sovereign nation. Okay? Ukraine deserves to be a sovereign nation and make up its own mind and be able to help out its own citizens. But historically speaking, given its proximity and history to Russia, given its proximity with Russia and its history, its complex history with Russia, the likelihood that Ukraine will be able to join NATO is slim to none, okay? For this very specific reason, because if Russia, for example, decided, well, this territory where there's a lot of Russian people living in it is actually now Russian territory, and did what they did with Georgia or parts of Georgia, and they did that to Ukraine like they did this time, that would actually be World War III. And that's precisely why people know that's precisely why people won't fucking do that. That's precisely why people don't want, like France, Germany, and other NATO partners do not want Ukraine to be a part of NATO. I don't even think America wants Ukraine to be a part of NATO, if we're being real. They just want to dangle it in front of them like a Kurdish nation state for all the Kurds living in diaspora in the Middle East in the exact same way. Okay? The reason why people say I'm a puppet to Vladimir Putin, though, is because unlike the rest of the American foreign policy Andes that live in the imperial core, I don't fucking treat Russia as a monolithic force for evil, like as though we're creating villains and good guys and bad guys in the story, even though Vladimir Putin is bad. He is a bad person. He's a kleptocratic, authoritarian, bigoted, evil human being, okay? Straight the fuck up. But this isn't a goddamn Marvel movie, okay? This is a person who is in charge of a gigantic country, who has run this gigantic country for a very fucking long time. And obviously, he has strategic interests, geopolitical interests, and an interest in defending its own borders and its own territorial sovereignty. That's the reason why people get fucking mad at me, because I take a realpolitik approach to why Russia is operating in the way that it does. And for people who are used to the black and white, you just lost all your credit. I did not lose anything. For people who want to hear the baby-brained, here, there you go. Banners up, boys. For people who want to hear the baby-brained, like, oh yeah, Vladimir Putin's a bad guy and that's why he's doing bad things. There's no material reason for why this is happening. For people who want to hear that, you're not going to get that here, okay? You do a disservice to the people suffering under these regimes if you say he's a madman without thinking about the strategic reasons for these decisions. There can be no change if you think that way. Yeah. We do kind of look like Tim Pool after that 49 state landslide. Yeah. I would look like Tim Pool after that 49 state landslide, L, if, you know, there was a bombing, active bombing currently happening on Kiev, and like Ukrainians were being murdered left and right at this moment. I would be that way if America was like, we're going with a full-throated, this is a full-blown invasion, and yet it hasn't happened. At this point, I have a more aggressive stance on Russian troops inside of Ukrainian borders than the American State Department does. So how do you pair up with that? Okay. Anyway. So. Everyday 18-month subs who avoided the previous purges come out of their caves to give idiotic takes. Yeah. I mean, they come in here and they're like, I want baby brain shit. Like, give me that good baby brain goo goo gaga shit. Like, tell me a story. Like, Vladimir Putin bad, Joe Brandon good. He's doing all the best things, okay? And, you know, they truly care. Like, America this time legitimately cares about Ukraine, and legitimately cares about the Ukrainian people, and legitimately cares about the Ukrainian people's interests. And it's totally not fucking just using Ukraine like a fucking cum receptacle, okay? And just like the case, just like the civil society NGOs that operate all around the fucking world, okay? Just like how they operate all around the goddamn world. Oh, I saw this already. This is fucking hilarious too. Just like they do in the same exact way, there are legitimate grievances that they pinpoint within the fucking country. Like the Euromaidan, for example. There are legitimate grievances with the prior administration and how corrupt it is, right? Of course. And it's fucking dog shit, right? So then they use that as an opportunity to fucking turn around and be like, that's why we got to fucking abolish this government. We got to throw this government away and put our government in, a government that is actually on our side. They're doing this exact same thing with Ukraine. Ukraine has legitimate fears of Russia doing what it's been doing so far. Okay? Using those legitimate fears, they're saying, hey, let's get you on board with NATO, even though we have no interest in actually putting you in NATO, but let's get you hyped up. You know? Go ahead. Do whatever the fuck you want. Pentagon calls Russian troops ready to go now. But like, go where? Are they gonna? So look, this is less similar to Crimea than it is to Georgia, right? However, your critique doesn't hold any true geopolitical weight. It's easy for you to be harsher than the U.S. State Department. I mean, of course. My words have no material effect on the situation, but doesn't that kind of prove to you that like the American government is not really run as a democracy either? I mean, I criticize America because I'm an American, right? And theoretically, our words and our opinion on this situation should be impactful, but it's not. So, wait, let's continue for a second, okay? So here's what I think is going on currently, or what is scary for everyone involved is Vladimir Putin using the situation to take over and permanently take over even the Ukrainian occupied parts, of now territory that it now declared sovereign and independent this past week, right? The Donbas region. And there are areas there. First of all, that region currently has 7% of the entire 7% of the entire Ukrainian country's citizens, right? And what? Break the internet again? What the fuck is this? Okay, stop. That's completely irrelevant. So if they actually move further, because right now they have troops inside of Ukrainian borders, but in the separatist-controlled states, okay? That's part of the reason why they won't actually, that's part of the reason why they won't, the American government is saying, like, this is an introduction to the invasion, okay? What they could potentially do, no, we got to listen to people like this guy. What they could potentially do is take over the entirety of that region, and there would be actual fucking war, okay, in that situation. There would be, like, not war and not an invasion like what's going on currently with no fucking fire and just shelling, back and forth shelling, but like actual war where Russian troops are fighting against the Ukrainian National Guard in an effort to overtake the rest of the Donbas region and declare it fully independent and sovereign from Ukraine, and then most likely run another fucking referendum to be like, oh yeah, look, all of the Ukrainian people evacuated from this area, and now everyone that's Russian is saying they want to be a part of Russia. Like, oops, we're taking over. Okay? That is the exact same fucking that is the exact same playbook from, I mean, in some ways from Crimea, but definitely even closer to Georgia. That's why they used the exact same press release from when they did this in Georgia. Okay? So, how does this move forward, though? Like, how do we move forward in this situation? So what they possibly could do is take over even more strategic positions beyond the Donbas region, and then hyper-focus everyone's efforts onto that additional encroachment, and then basically neutralize all the conversation and force the most favorable Minsk II agreement that they wanted to create upon Ukraine by being like, here, look at the other territory that we actually went into with our troops, hyper-focus on that. This territory now, the territory that has already been run half by like Russian partisans and Russian people and wanted sovereignty or whatever. This area is now Russian territory. Okay? And that is, in a way, that is exactly similar to Crimea, because Crimea, or fears about Crimea were neutralized, or fears about Crimea and anger about Crimea from the rest of the world and from Ukraine was basically tempered because they had more pressing matters at hand, right? The two people's republics that they recognized earlier this week. Yes, one thing I hear is Mariupol is another potential area of strategic interest that they could shift their focus onto, so that nobody fucking gives a shit about Donbas anymore. Okay? Does that make sense? I think that what might likely be is that Russia would go to at least to the Dnipro River. Strategically, it's one of the barriers separating NATO from the Russian heartland. .100 IQ prediction. They get Kiev. Say this is Russia now, and then threat Poland border with Belarus. Mark my word, in 5 years. Okay. The reason why I've said that that is a laughable notion, because like there are 44 million people in Ukraine. Okay, they have guns, they have training. Like America couldn't deal with the insurgency in Afghanistan. Why do you think Russia will be able to do that in its own fucking border? Okay? That like no one wants that. Russians don't fucking want that. The Russian people don't want that. At least the polling that I have seen thus far show that the broader Russian people do not want to take over fucking Kiev. Worrying reports from Crimea on the entire night shift at Titan chemicals plant in Armyansk evacuated from the facility. This might be a preparation for another staged provocation by Russia. Moscow seems to have no limits in attempting to falsify pretexts for further aggression. Afghanistan doesn't have access to nuclear waste. CNN released a new poll that indicated more Russian people are now for it, but it sounds like BS law. I saw that. Half of Russians say it would be right to use military force to keep Ukraine out of NATO. 43% of Russians said use of military force against Ukraine to join it to Russia would be wrong, while 36% said it would be right. The rest of the respondents said they didn't know if it would be right or wrong. Wait. What? So still more Russians. Wait, how do you write this article and then live with yourself the way that you live? So okay, so I'm right. One out of every 2 Russians says it would be right, while only a quarter say it would be wrong. I know, but that's vague as fuck. Because right now they're already strong arming Ukraine. They're already using military force in Ukraine to ensure that they do not join NATO. Whereas this is full-scale invasion, okay? Using military force against Ukraine to join it to Russia. Full-scale invasion and annexation of Ukraine. Why is invading Donetsk and Luhansk not counted as a real invasion when it's part of Ukraine? I personally think it is. I personally think that's an invasion. Like it's a baby invasion. Okay, you put your fucking soldiers in there, but it doesn't seem like I don't know, going into Baghdad, for example, right? So why doesn't it feel like the same? Why haven't people started dying in like active hot war thus far? Even though technically it is an invasion. If you're confused at this point about this, if you have this question, okay, the reason for it is because the boots on the ground that Russia has brought inside of Ukrainian borders is in a vassal state of Russia, basically, okay, where a lot of Russian people live and is controlled by Russian people, one of which is literally in Putin's party, and is a separatist territory that has, for the past 8 years, fought against the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian National Guard, for the past 8 years. Okay? So that's the reason why it doesn't feel like a real invasion. Do you understand? I know that a lot of people have a different points of view on this. I have a different point of view on this. I think it is a real invasion. Okay? If you put fucking, you know, military members inside of another country's borders that you are actively, saber-rattling with, then it's no longer saber-rattling. You've actually put fucking boots on the ground. That is the reason why I said I was wrong. Right? And by definition, it is. By definition, it is a incredibly aggressive move forward. But if you are thinking like, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Where I don't understand why there's no war going on. Why no one has fucking died yet. Like, what the fuck's happening? I'm trying to describe that to you. The reason why is because they haven't actually encroached upon territory that is hostile towards their Russian military yet. Okay? Hostile towards their presence. There's active shelling going on, but they haven't fucking engaged in like real war at the moment. Dude, that's basically a narrative in Russia on state TV, etc. You motherfuckers watch state TV more than anyone else does, I think. I have no idea what the fucking Russian state TV narrative is. I don't even know where the fuck to even find that. But for some reason, all these dudes are like, they're bigger Russaboos than anyone else that they claim are like in the pocket of Russia. It's so strange. It's like, dude, this is exactly like the same State Department propaganda. When do you think there will be active participation of U.S. troops instead of only weapons? No, that won't. I don't think that'll happen, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But never forget that like Vietnam escalated to the point that it did because America knowingly sent military trainers and military equipment, and then some of those trainers got shot and killed. But there's a reason why there are no American trainers, or at the very least, no official American trainers on the ground inside of Ukrainian borders at the moment. Okay? And by that, I mean, like, I don't know who the fuck, like, they might have people, of course they have people there, like CIA and shit, but I mean, like deliberately sending, officially sending military members is different than, like, having contractors there, having CIA members there. You know what I mean? Like, that's entirely different. We're going to get to the Pentagon news. They do have Canadian trainers, though. We saw Canadian trainers yesterday. They do. Canada has sent in trainers. But nobody gives a fuck about, the Canadian trainers. If Canadian trainers die, what's Canada going to do? Invade Russia? Okay. Because America runs the show. Okay? Sorry, it's just the truth. Nobody gives a fuck about Canada. Canada is like literally the little kid behind America's little brother going like, I should fuck them up. I'll fuck them up for you, Dad. I'll fuck them up for you, big bro. Let me at him, big bro. And it's like, it's just America's controlling the situation. Okay. Does anyone have a fucking a YouTube link for the Pentagon one? I want to see that one. Bro, imagine valuing Ukrainian sovereignty. They would be much better off under Russian management. Ukraine will drift even more fascist, and you know the situation only propels that inevitability. I have talked about this already, and I do believe that, yes. People will get mad at me, but like I do.
Available to strengthen port infrastructure and supply chain resiliency.
No, not the press briefing. There's a Pentagon one too, isn't there? But I don't want a defense.gov one. I want to watch the fucking here.
To get back online quickly after such an attack.
So first, I don't think we're in a position to attribute these cyber disruptions that you're talking about. I assume you're talking about the various websites, the government websites that were taken offline. What I would just tell you, broadly speaking, Jen, is that we have provided
Hasan Battalion, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I got to pee. I'll be back in 1 second.
Cyber resilience training and assistance to the Ukrainians. And I won't go.
Dude, how would America train anyone in cyber resilience? We have no cyber security. Our fucking diplomats get owned by like free USBs, okay? We have literally gotten owned. We have bases that are supposed to be top secret that have gotten absolutely fucking opened up to the rest of the planet because of Fitbit. Okay, we have no cybersecurity. We have no cybersecurity. If we teach Ukraine about cybersecurity, they're fucked. Okay, what is our cybersecurity?
To invade Ukraine, what will the U.S. do? Secondly,
what the fuck?
If Russia were to use nuclear weapons in this invasion, what would be the impact on the Korean Peninsula? Because there is a fear that North Korea will copy this. Any comment?
Yeah, I'm going to avoid speculating here and getting into hypotheticals, particularly about the potential use of nuclear weapons, Jenny. What we've said all along, two things. One, Mr. Putin has a lot of capability at his disposal right now. As I've said earlier, they are ready to go. And number two, if he decides to conduct a full-scale invasion here, again, bigger than what we've seen in just the last few days, this will be a war of choice. That he'll be doing so with, with diplomacy and options still left on the table. And it won't be bloodless. There will be suffering, there will be sacrifice. And all of that must and should be laid at his feet, because he's doing this by choice. How he does this, when he does this, we don't know for sure. But if he does this, this will be a war of choice and totally
our cyber fleet. What?
And as for the impact on the region,
for the record, we still hold the record for most nukes lost too. Like, I'm pretty sure.
Korean allies, and we noted that the South Koreans also came out publicly yesterday with a statement of support for Ukraine. That was certainly noticed by the whole international community.
Yes, you fucking heard. Did I stutter? Yes, I said lost. Nuclear warheads lost. Okay? Another fun fact. I think like some Greenpeace activists or like anti-war activists literally broke into a military base. Obviously, they don't have the fucking keys to launch them, but like they were able to literally go to the area where you could launch. Like just random normies, like not fucking, the espionage, statecraft Andes. Like I'm talking like fucking grandmas, anti-war grandmas. Notoriously bad.
Command hack. I don't know of any changes to that.
I love when I say something and then someone Googles it and they're like, holy fuck, he wasn't making that up. It's my favorite fucking thing. Yeah, Google it, dude. Fitbit, U.S. military base. Google, I think Iranians were able to fucking steal a boatload of information by just giving free USBs out at a fucking conference. All the dummies were like, oh, free USB. Click, put it in your fucking computer. Oh, no.
To continue to have them. So this will be a constant discussion with each host nation that they
end up in. 2013 is when the nuns broke into what the media calls Fort Knox of nuclear weapons in Oak Ridge.
Opportunities are going to conduct. This is really all about reassuring allies and partners and demonstrating that in tangible ways. On your, I lost your third question. Dang it.
Rapid response force.
Oh, that's a better question for NATO, Abraham. That's not a question for the United States. That'll be up to the NAC to decide, North Atlantic Council to decide, not just the United States unilaterally, of course. What I will tell you is that as you know, the Secretary has put on a shorter alert tether our contributions to the NRF, the NATO response force, so they are more ready to go if called upon. So while I can't give you any sorts of timing or certainty about whether the NRF is going to be activated, what I can tell you with certainty that is, if it is, our contributions to the NRF will be ready to go and will contribute fully.
But they're still in the United States, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Tony.
Is there much discussion within the Pentagon or within the National Security Council about whether all of Putin's maneuvers and the force buildup is a grand game of brinksmanship, and he's got no intention of invading? He just wants to show his muscle, get the U.S. and NATO to commit to not letting Ukraine into the alliance. In other words, a game of brinksmanship, bluffing, but not really an intent to invade.
We have seen no indication of that, Tony.
But let me ask you this.
Wait, what do you mean? Other than what he's literally said?
Assuming he's going to do this? Or have you actually skeptically look at whether this is just...
We have no indication of that other than what Vladimir Putin has said. But obviously, Vladimir Putin is an unreliable orator. Clearly, we should not listen.
Allies and partners. 4 months. The Secretary was just in Brussels last week meeting with all his counterparts in the alliance. It's not just the United States who is deeply concerned about the potential for war in Ukraine now. That other NATO allies feel the same way. We've all been looking at this. I hope, we all hope, that we're wrong about this. But every indication we have is that he is poised to attack Ukraine again, and this time with what could be significant military force. I mean, we are talking about more than 150,000 troops that he has arrayed against that border. As I said earlier, we believe that they are now at a state of readiness where they could attack at any time. That's what we're seeing. And that's what we've been saying. We've been talking about this very openly.
I've said this already, and I will repeat it one more time, okay? Have a fucking, have a conversation, a negotiation with Russia, okay, where you ask them to withdraw their troops, you demobilize near the Ukrainian border, and you give in writing it promises that Ukraine does not join NATO, okay? Hasan, it's not that easy. Well, it is that easy. It's literally that easy. This could have happened last month. Don't say they already tried, bro. This literally could have happened last month. The only reason why it hasn't been able to de-escalate up until last month is because America keeps fucking up the talks. It's just like people love saying this. And by the way, it's not that easy. I am old enough to know that the Taliban originally also made conditional agreements on giving Osama bin Laden to the United States. And George W. Bush famously said, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Okay? And that was used as a reason to fucking invade Afghanistan. So it's so fucking stupid to have this conversation over and over again when America is always the one that refuses to fucking come to the table. Okay? Ukraine wanting to join NATO is completely insignificant because Germany will never allow Ukraine to join NATO. And even America, I don't think, will allow Ukraine to join NATO for what is happening to Ukraine currently. Okay? They're just dangling NATO in front of Ukraine and giving them guns and giving them weapons and saying like, oh, go off kings, go off kings. Meanwhile, Ukraine isn't even, in my opinion, and this goes against exactly what, this goes against what like leftists who are a little bit too much simping for Vladimir Putin will get mad at me for saying this. But I do think that that Ukraine is less aggressive than the way that the Russian media fucking portrays Ukraine to be, especially right now. Why in the ever-loving fuck would Ukraine straight up fight in those territories in Donbas when there are 200,000 fucking troops, some of which have almost direct access to Kiev if they want to from the northern border? Okay? It's like strategically the worst time to fucking actually engage in aggressive action, which is why I'm saying if there's like any sort of serious fucking explosion or any sort of serious like death or whatever the fuck that occurs within Russian controlled territories, okay, I would expect it to be at the hands of either like America-backed CIA-trained fucking Azov battalion dickheads who do want to fucking escalate the conflict and tension, or I would expect it to be done as a false flag operation. If Russia wants to further encroach within Ukraine and say, hey, we need to shore up our borders, we need to defend the Russian citizens, the Russian individuals that we gave passports to not that long ago, that are living in this territory. Okay? Why should countries ask Russia if they want to join NATO and Russia wants USSR back? NATO, unfortunately, necessary. Okay, dude. I can't have this conversation over and over again with motherfuckers who are like, dude, Russia definitely wants USSR back. They're going to get USSR back. What countries want and what they can do is entirely separate conversations. I mean, dude, every Eastern Bloc fan of mine has understandably this like irrational fear of Russia doing whatever the fuck it wants and like rebuilding the USSR or some shit. But remember, I want to point this out. What I suspect will end up happening is Russia will further encroach into areas if like an actual invasion in the way that you understand it with like death and like, you know, active fucking military members fighting one another. If the closest thing to that, the closest you'll ever get to that is potentially Russia further moving into the rest of Donbas and not necessarily just the Russian separatist controlled territories as they are currently inside of. Kremlin says the heads of DPR and LPR asked Putin to help repel the aggression of Ukrainian armed forces in order to avoid civilian casualties and a humanitarian disaster in Donbas. This is legitimately worrying. Like this is like way more worrying and way more troubling than what fucking the American government is saying about like Kiev this, Kiev that. Okay? It's worrying, but it's predictable. But it's still worrying. So just like Georgia and no one cares about that? Exactly. That's why I kept saying it's just like, that's why I said it's similar to Georgia. I already talked about this in the beginning. I already talked about this in the beginning of the broadcast. I'm not going to repeat it again, but what I feel like is going to happen, what I feel like is going to happen in this situation, and Ukraine has been restrained for the record. I do agree with that so far. What I do believe is going on, or what I do believe will happen is potentially Putin taking further, like Putin escalating tensions into Ukrainian-controlled territory, Ukrainian-controlled parts of the Donbas region, and full-blown taking it over or trying to take it over, which will lead to active war. Which will lead to active fucking war, like actual war, not like what we've seen so far, but like legitimate fucking war in that region. And then Russia will further take additional territories, or Russia will go into another area, and then everyone will hyper-focus on that other area, and then no one will give a shit about Donbas anymore, in the same way that no one gives a shit about Georgia. Even you know that's true? What? Even I know what? Even you're fighting against yourself, but I'm not the problem? What? Even you know that's not true? That's the problem? Wait. Okay. Strange. Why wouldn't they just invade earlier? Because now everyone's more prep for war / Gen. That executive director, false flag operations. Okay. We'll wait for this I don't want to hear it from OSINT Twitter, okay? Open source intelligence Twitter. But now people are claiming that there will be a false flag operation in Crimea. There was evacuations that occurred at the Titan chemical plant in Armyansk. And now they're saying that could be a false flag operation in an effort to justify further going into Ukrainian-controlled areas, Ukrainian-controlled territories in Donbas. Okay?
Jim.
John, you talked about to build on Selby's question, you talked about the F-35s and I guess 32 Apaches. Well, it's not just an aircraft and a pilot. How many people are associated with those moves?
All told, if you add it up,
according to reports, we would totally not frame Russia. Dog, come on, dude. Okay, look, man. I understand the realpolitik and the genuine interest that Vladimir Putin has in like defending its own fucking regional sovereignty. But if you think that they're above fucking doing false flag operations, they're not. America does it all the fucking time. And Russia does it too. Get the fuck out of here. Of course they would do that. That's crazy. That's crazy to fucking say that like Russia would not do that. I mean, come on. Come the fuck on, dude. Like... Anyway,
is more appropriately General Milley's counterpart, but I can't imagine that there would be a reason why if General Walters wanted to speak to him that he couldn't in his NATO hat. Yeah,
John, based on given the fact that Russians have brought a variety of capabilities to the area, including cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, do you still think that the arms provided by the United States would help Ukrainians to defend themselves against all these capabilities? Because
we are providing, again, lethal and non-lethal assistance to Ukraine. They've expressed their gratitude for that assistance. I would remind you that, well, a couple of things, $650 million just this year alone, and we're still in discussions with them about what kind of support they might need going forward. And we're in constant consultation with them about their needs and what we can provide. It's not just us. That's my second point. Other nations are as well, stepping up to provide both lethal and non-lethal assistance to Ukraine.
Lethal and non-lethal assistance.
Phones here. I haven't done that yet. Let's see.
Yeah, get the phones going. Get the phones going, dude. Is it still happening because Russia doesn't want to allow Ukraine to join NATO? It's not just that. It's two separate components. The NATO fears are, one, in my opinion, legitimate, and it's definitely a very real reason. But the other component is the Minsk agreement. Okay, and now, and this is technically something that the Ukrainian leadership did not want either. This is now it looks like Russia is violating it by sending troops into the Donbas region, even if it is on the Russian-controlled parts, officially putting boots on the ground within Ukrainian borders. Okay, but as far as the Minsk agreement goes, okay, and it's completely a violation of that now. It's like an official violation of this, rather than just like the baby shelling that goes back and forth between the Ukrainian National Guard and the Russian separatist forces that are backed by the Russian government. This is like an official end to that, okay? It is an official end to that. NATO legitimate? I think, yes, NATO fears are legitimate. I do think that. So you are defending Putin and basically saying he's the good guy and the invasion is almost as good as the top of the hour ad break? You should be ashamed of yourself. I feel violated. I feel absolutely fucking violated. Okay, I do not like this. You're taking my joy away. At the top of the hour, there's a 6-second ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. You just violated my Minsk agreement, okay? And I was not party to it. And you fucking violated. You violated me. You just invaded me. But if you don't want the ad break to invade you, you can actually get some lethal aid in the form of a $5 a month subscription, or potentially in the form of a Twitch Prime subscription for free if you don't have $5 a month to spend on a Twitch Twitch subscription. That's right. For free $99 with a pre-existing Amazon Prime account connected to your Twitch account, you can avoid the top of the hour ad breaks. Or if you're a good boy, maybe you can get lucky and get gifted a sub. Here's the 1 minute ad break now. Okay. Putin has made it clear he does not agree with the idea of a Ukrainian sovereignty. I'm not a fan of Putin, but the only force capable of stopping him is NATO intervention or brutal sanctions on its people, not just oligarchs. These are horrible options, and Ukraine would be better under Russia than the US. Wait, what? No, it's not. No, it's not that Putin is not. Putin is not in line with Ukrainian sovereignty. When he talked about decommunization, or however you say it, and Ukraine's betrayal to Lenin, being a bunch of fake friends to Lenin, okay? What he was, and then literally said, I'll show you decommunization, okay? That was more so Ukraine's step towards exclusively partnering with the West and moving away from partnering with Russia, making it impossible or completely almost putting an end to any sort of partnership with Russia in the future, down the line, whatsoever, which would understandably and obviously harm any sort of fucking sovereignty or any sort of territorial integrity that Russia would want to have. Okay? This doesn't change the reality that, like, what he is doing is further encroaching in. Tankies were so confused at that speech. Dude, ban evasion Andy number 4. You have to be fucking stupid if you think that, like, Vladimir Putin was ever a communist or a socialist or anything like that. He is not. He is literally a fucking hyper-capitalist kleptocrat oligarch. He is very much an invention of the West sacking the post-USSR Russia. Like, he was built and created as a capitalist puppet. Okay? Of course he's, like, not fucking pro-communist. There's never been a communist, and he will never be a communist. That bit about decommunization is also a Russian dog whistle, though. You heard the last thing you heard the thing you just described. People in Russia heard something with a bit of extra flavor. Yeah, I mean, that's why he also said, "I'm calling upon all the nationalist forces of Russia, all the Russian patriots will understand and agree with me on this." Okay. Where my Russian nationalists at? Am I right? Also, he was literally dissing Lenin and dissing Stalin in that entire speech. What he's talking about there is not about decommunization, okay? What he's talking about there is Ukraine partnering up and like officially moving towards aligning themselves with the Western world, no matter what the fucking cost is, no matter what will turn to, no matter what will happen to their economy as a consequence of that, rather than like actually ruining the remnants of communism in Ukraine or whatever the fuck. Okay, that has nothing to do with like actual decommunization, because he in the speech prior to that shit on Lenin and Stalin. So why the fuck would he care about decommunization? It's not about decommunization. Putin was literally a communist, though. Yeah, totally. He's a total communist. I will show you decommunization. He meant territories, what was given to Ukrainian SSR by... Yes, I know. I know what he's saying. He's saying not Kiev, but he's basically stating like, oh yeah, you want to fucking... You want to shit on Lenin's legacy? Okay. Well, then I'll take over the fucking parts that Lenin offered to you. That was a big mistake. That's the take there. Okay? That's the main point that he was making there, which is like, we will take all of the fucking... You're talking to a straight pro-Stalin Marxist-Leninist. Saw many of my MLs blindsided by the realization that Putin is super anti-communist. There's a legit but bigger contingent of online MLs. What? You just said you're like a Stalinist, dude. What the fuck? Anyway. What is the Russian Communist Party up to nowadays? Are they gaining and losing support? I don't fucking... Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anything and everything that happens in Russia is completely in control and done by Vladimir Putin. Anyway. The reason why Marxist-Leninists or people on the internet are functionally on Putin's side or whatever the fuck, okay? The reason why they have this sort of approach, this sort of fucking take, seemingly, is not because they genuinely and legitimately love Vladimir Putin or anything, but usually they offer critical support because they see it as a counterbalance, a counterweight to American imperialism, and that's it. Okay? That's the reason. Anyway, still wrong, lol, because Russia is also imperialist. Russian Communist Party isn't really communist. They're just there to fake pretense of party competition. I mean, look, I've talked about this before. This like frustrates a lot of people. This is going to trigger the fuck out of Americans, so I'm just going to put the banner up one more time. But Russia's imperialism and its imperialist desires are real, but they're baby imperialism desires in comparison to what the actual imperialist superpower is. It's like fucking complaining about the One Belt, One Road initiative when you literally have 350 military bases around the world. There is no one that is a true imperial power like the United States of America. Okay? This does not make Vladimir Putin's actions reasonable, desirable, good at all. Okay? It does not. It absolutely does not. I just want to point that out. But it also doesn't mean that like every single thing that Vladimir Putin is doing with respect to combating encroachment from the West and taking initiative in an effort to defend its own regional sovereignty in the way that many other countries do especially if they do not align with the United States of America, like Turkey has, for example. That's the reason why you don't fucking hear about the northern corridor of Syria anymore as a big deal, okay? Because, like, what Turkey did in the northern Syrian corridor is identical to what the fuck is going on to what Vladimir Putin is doing. But the reason why you don't hear about it is because Turkey is a NATO ally, Turkey's an ally to America, and Turkey did that. Sorry, Kurdish people who thought that, like, America would give you a fucking nation state, but Turkey did that with America's go-ahead, as I said back then. Okay? The main difference here is that Vladimir Putin, some of the actions that Vladimir Putin takes is understandable and reasonable territorial control desires. Okay? Which Kurdish people have thought that? Literally just making shit up. Actually, it wasn't even Kurdish people that thought that. It was mostly Western leftists. You're right. Kurds know that they get fucked over by America every time, but they have no other option. So they still are like, yeah. They just do it because they have no other options. Everything you say is wrong and you have bad takes always. There's the rest of your criticism for today, bud. Thank you. Literally taking over countries are better than making military bases? What? The countries that they're literally taking over are entirely different than like bordering nations that they take over with like historic populations of the citizens that they that are Russian or speak Russian is entirely different than like building a fucking military base in Africa. So you can have a better launching point to you know, control whatever nation you want to from that point. Okay? Ukrainians aren't Russian, you fucking weirdo. Of course Ukrainians aren't Russian. I'm not talking about Ukraine. No, I'm not going to get into that. That's not what I'm referencing. I'm talking about Crimea. I'm talking about fucking the areas that Vladimir Putin believes is supposed to be independent. There are at least Russians living there, so they can fucking, so he can claim and justify that it's because he wants to defend those Russian people there. Okay? Not saying that's all right. I'm not saying that's true, and I'm not saying that's a reasonable fucking assertion. Okay? I'm simply stating what Vladimir Putin's perspective on this is. Ethnicity, not nationality. Choose your words wisely. If you were Putin and there were chatters in Eastern Ukraine, would you come to their aid? Yes. I would defend my chatters on both sides. Okay? France is going to invade Quebec because French people there need to be protected. Again, France and Canada do not have a border. France and Canada have a way. First of all, that would be correct if the French people in Quebec literally were like, we want to be independent and then become a vassal state for France. But I'm pretty sure the fucking Quebecois despise France. Like, they're francophone, but they're not French. It's just, that's an entirely different league of its own. They fucking, and also France doesn't like Quebec. Quebec will invade France more likely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Alberta becoming a vassal state for the United States is more likely than Quebec becoming a part of France. I think Albertans want to be American more than fucking Quebecois want to be French, dude. Honestly, take Alberta, you can have it. No, we're good. We don't want that. Can the Pope no,
what we're
the
seeing
Pope
as
can't
the
intervene on
impact
anything.
of not enough
Okay, this sucks. Yeah. The fucking inflation is happening because there's not enough competition. That's why. I mean, there's truth to that, actually. Alberta is like that conservative shit face in your family. You said China also isn't a communist country, so what's an example of a true communist country? There's no fucking true communist country, dude. Communism is an end state, okay? A stateless, borderless, moneyless, classless society. There is not a single fucking place that has been able to achieve this, okay? There are transitional socialist states with their own seasoning, with their own version of that. I, as a disgusting revisionist, believe in reform leading up to a revolution. So, you know, it just depends on what your perspective is on the matter. Communism is not an end state to be established. Communism is the real movement that sublates the present state of things, which is from Marx. Okay, I'm trying to describe it to Normans. It's a goal. It's what we should evolve back into. Communism equals this dictatorship. Yeah. Imagine having realistic understanding of revolutionary capabilities rather than being a wannabe terrorist. I mean, in that situation, I think Marxist-Leninists that fucking LARP about that are no different than the anarchitties that fucking, you know, love burning cop cars or whatever. They just LARP about something that is like a little bit more well-established and has historical precedent, but is nearly impossible to fucking recreate because there is no current understanding or analysis of the current material conditions and the way that the way that workers relate to the means of production at the moment, especially in the countries where these people LARP at. Unless you're a fucking Maoist third worldist living in like literally a country with productive capabilities, you're just simply LARPing. Everyone around you is doing like a fucking white collar job. Everyone around you is doing like a professional managerial class job, and you're just fucking fantasizing about this kind of revolution. Anyway, I personally do not believe that there is any revolutionary potential in the first world. I don't. The only thing you can do as someone living in the imperial core is to not undermine actual revolutionary potential occurring in the third world by, you know, slowly but surely building labor movements, slowly but surely building allegiances, and making sure that America, the largest imperialist superpower on the planet, doesn't get in the way of other countries that are democratically deciding to seize the means of production or nationalize key industries. Because America has been the most significant hurdle against any sort of socialist revolution taking place. We're the labor aristocracy. Our conditions are too comfortable for us to give up. I mean, yeah, that's the truth. Are we ready for it? Don't even fucking say it. Sit your ass down and let us do it. What? Okay. Which is why we should be fundamentally against the expansion of NATO. I mean, I am. And ultimately, all this fucking theory nerd shit it's completely meaningless. We're just going back and forth on outdated ideas, outdated theories, basically, and fantasizing about these things that we have no power to fucking genuinely change. So it's a completely insignificant fractionalist attitude to have, especially when you're living in a country like the United States of America. You're gonna get so much shit for this. May Allah protect you. What? I mean, this is a position that I've had for a very, very long time. I mean, I talk about it regularly. That's why people say I'm a fucking liberal. That's why I don't have a problem with having a large base within anyone and everyone that considers themselves to be a leftist or anti-capitalist or even interested in learning about anti-capitalism. That's why it's just, I think it's idiotic I make memes about Marxist-Leninists and I joke about fucking anarchists regularly and I joke about liberals all the goddamn time and even social democrats, but your takes on Marxist-Leninists sometimes just shows me how incredibly online you are. Like actual organizing IRL MLs are not like how you describe it. It's painful to see chatters just eat the shit up. And so are actual anarchists that engage in organizing. That I understand that. It's part of the reason why I don't give a fuck. Are you balding? Never noticed it before. Still looking sexy though. Don't worry. No, I'm not fucking balding, bitch. Shut the fuck up. Any and every conversation that motherfuckers engage in on the internet, especially the ones that revolve around theory, oftentimes are just stupid as fuck. It's just you're not anywhere near any sort of like serious grip of power. Okay, but this is fun. This is a fun thing to see. Just love how you can always bet on Western bourgeois, gay, lesbian organization and media publications to come right in the right time as an established wing of empire when it is time to beat those drums for imperialist war, just incredibly consistent in their role. Russia has a list of gay rights advocates to be killed or sent to camps after invasion of Ukraine. Come on, dude. Come the fuck on, dude. This is like, first of all, what makes this even funnier, or rather sadder, and way, way more hypocritical, is that this piece of news conveniently comes at a time when both Florida and Texas, two gigantic fucking states, have independently passed, like through their state legislature, bills that are harming LGBT people in America. Okay? Greg Abbott has officially directed the Family Protective Services to begin investigating all trans children in Texas and prosecuting their parents as child abusers. He has also instructed all teachers, doctors, and caregivers to begin reporting any trans students they see. Jesus fucking Christ. And of course, other red states are also trying out their own version of this. The only difference between this bill, okay, and this where the fuck did I delete it? What happened? And this is made up. Both of those things are newsworthy. So what? I'm not saying that Russia is not expressly anti-LGBT. Of course they are. Okay, they 1000% are. But this is just leaked intel. This is a fucking real bill. Okay? A new amendment to the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida would explicitly require schools to out LGBTQ students and their parents within a 6-week time frame, but this got taken out, right? Or is this still... Oh, the amendment has been withdrawn. Okay, as of yesterday. Both sides are dog shit. First of all, you can't even fucking pinkwash Russia invading Ukraine because it's not like Ukraine is pro-LGBT. What the fuck are you talking about? But motherfuckers don't know this shit at all. They literally act like Ukraine is at the fucking height of like non-corrupt Western democracy that is not fucking that's not anti-LGBT themselves. Like, the fuck are you talking about? Russia and the US are not even close to comparable on LGBT. Of course they're not, dude. Yes, the United States of America is better for LGBT rights than Russia. No shit. I don't understand why this is important fucking pretext to justify like invasion or taking an incredibly aggressive stance that will ultimately allow us to fucking take military action against the entire Russian population. Okay? People do not understand. Russia is literally a conservative Orthodox state and we are not that far off. No, that's not true. We are far off. Unless you're in fucking Texas. I mean, Texas is fucking abortion bills. Like, America, if left to its own devices, is more conservative in certain territories than Colombia, which legalized abortion as of this week. Colombia, motherfucker, are you kidding me? Are you fucking joking, dude? We live in America. It's supposed to be the #1 freest country in the world, baby. How fucked is that? How insane is that? How psychotic is that? It's insane. I feel like chat sometimes doesn't understand that this is what doesn't get talked about. We don't need you to be parroting the imperialist line. That's for the rest of the media to do. Yeah, I mean, I talk about that. I mention it all the time. I do mention that all the time when people are like, dude, why aren't you? That's why I have this fucking laughable, this comical banner above my head. Because there are a lot of fucking children that need to be babied. Like, they need to be fed like little babies. Like, I need to fucking make the food into a puree, okay, and sweeten the deal so they understand it. They need to like hear, they need to hear all of the fucking, criticisms with a sweet little fucking shell around it. You know what I mean? I can't just like talk exclusively about one side without other people being like, well, what the fuck? This is not reinforcing my perspective that like Russia is bad. It's a bad country. Vladimir Putin is a bad person. Okay? Your audience is children, so what do you expect? I mean, that's fine. The only issue is that the only issue that I have with this sort of stuff, though, having like a younger audience that's like genuinely curious and interested in hearing a different perspective is understandable. Good, okay. It's the people who are like, no, I actually do know better. And you should be fucking basically reposting everything I've seen everywhere else and not talk about the other side at all.
Of sanctions.
That's right, Tony. And the tension between this white.
You're such a dumb fuck. You cannot go 5 seconds without trying to equivocate to America. Putin supports a leader in Chechnya that hunts down, kidnaps, and tortures gay people. How are you surprised a list like that might exist? You don't know fucking anything. What do you mean, bro? There's no gay people in Chechnya. Right? None. Zero. Hey, you are great. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 gift subs. I already said that, of course, Russia is worse on LGBT issues than America. Okay? I recognize that. It's incredibly stupid. You just proved exactly what I was saying, which is I recognize that. I understand that. There is no reason to fucking mention that. There is no equivocation happening here. Okay? Do you get it? Do you understand? It doesn't have to be equal. The point is, Iran hurts gay people does not give us justification to fucking glass Iran. Because you know who dies in that situation? The gay Iranians, okay? A fact that I've mentioned 1,000,000 times over, okay? The way to help gay Iranians is not by glassing Iran, or is not by taking aggressive military stances against Iran, putting sanctions on Iran, so that Iran will then further become more reactionary and anti-Western, because anti-Western sentiment oftentimes is the way that like more reactionary and more fascist, more bigoted fucking forces rise up and seize control and harm gay people even further. Okay? She's pogging about Russia. She's like, pog, responding to Russia, pog. Okay? That's what's fucking annoying.
White House and Russia is growing. Late yesterday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken called off a plan.
Seriously, though, you just did it again. I just want to show the other side. There is no other side. Imperialist Russia is invading a country. They're 100% at fault. I agree that U.S. is bad, but in this case, we are doing nothing to do with this shit. The fact that you're even bringing up the U.S. is weird to me. No, the fact that I'm bringing the United States up in this circumstance is weird to you, or it's scary to you, because you refuse to fucking recognize the United States as an imperial power that is, of course, absolutely has everything to do with fucking matters in Ukraine and matters in Russia. Okay? They touch everything. It's fucking baby brained for you to act like the United States has nothing to do with this when we've openly sent hundreds of millions of dollars worth of lethal aid, i.e. weapons. We have trained and backed some of their more reactionary fucking elements within that society that are still unpopular and yet not as unpopular as they originally were. Okay?
Planned meeting with Russia's foreign minister. He said it doesn't make sense at this point to go ahead with talks now that the invasion has begun.
This is a flagrant violation of international law.
President Biden responded to Russia's invasion with what he called the first tranche of financial penalties, imposing sanctions on 2 large Russian banks with ties to
the U.S. UK get Ukraine to denuke in return they would be protected is a silly fucking take too, because like those nukes weren't even, those were USSR nukes that Ukrainians had no fucking opportunity to be able to fucking launch, okay? And they were sent back to Moscow. But for the record, I still think, listen, bitch, you got fucking nukes, you should keep them. Never give up your nukes. Don't forget, rule number 1 for nation building, for state building, never give up your nukes. Doesn't matter. Okay? Doesn't matter if you don't have the launch codes. Doesn't matter if you don't know how to fucking launch them. Never give up the nukes. Rule number 2, when someone asks you to give up the nukes, don't give up the nukes. Rule number 3, if they tell you you have nukes when you don't have nukes, find nukes. You have to find nukes at that point. Okay? Oh my God. If you don't find nukes, you are so fucked.
to the Russian military, cutting them off from Western investment. Ukraine's foreign minister hailed the news.
Hit Russia's economy now and hit it hard.
But some lawmakers from both parties are pushing the president to unleash all the economic punishments he's prepared.
Well, I think you should use the overwhelming amount of it
What?
now.
Impose.
What the fuck, bro? Bob Menendez and Mitch McConnell. Oh, God. Yo.
Well, I think you should.
Pushing the president to unleash all the economic punishments he's prepared.
Well, I think you should use the overwhelming amount of it now.
Impose the toughest possible sanctions. The toughest possible sanctions now.
The White House is coordinating.
Why? What good will that do? Then you're fucking giving the game away. Then you're literally, then you can't do anything. If Putin decides to do more shit, then you got nothing. The only thing you left in your hand, the only thing you have left in that circumstance is just war, I guess. Sick. Like Mitch McConnell, let me tell you something. I know you don't have a lot of life left to live on this planet, okay? Even though evil people never die, unfortunately. Okay? But like, you know, there is no bunker that fucking protects you and your neck pussy, you bitch ass, okay? You die in a nuclear holocaust too, okay? Holy fuck. Why is Kyle Kalinske rocking so hard with the sanctions? I thought he's not about that. So I understand the position that some people have where they're like, how dare we put sanctions on anyone? Okay. Like, how dare we? I get that. These are incredibly limited sanctions so far. Even though these kinds of sanctions are still an act of war, it's nowhere near as egregious as like imposing them on fucking Iraq, imposing them on Afghanistan, imposing them on Cuba and other countries that do not have a way to withstand these sanctions. These sanctions will marginally hurt the Russian population, not drastically, partially because they're geared up for these sorts of things. But ultimately, this is more saber-rattling sanctions rather than like legitimate ones. The real consequential one is harming both the EU and also Russia, which is stopping Nord Stream 2 from coming to fruition. Everyone is saying fuck Russians in the chat, and I feel so sad because fuck Putin, not the people. We do not choose to be in war. I mean, yeah. Saying sanctions only hurt civilians, is that true? It seems much better than military action. Yes, sanctions do hurt civilians, 1000%. Anyone who tells you it doesn't is wrong. Like, even these sanctions will end up hurting civilians.
With allies who also imposed new sanctions. Germany put a hold on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Why didn't we hear this uproar when it was about Iraq, Libya, Syria, and now everyone who dares to have a second opinion about causes of the Russian invasion will get skinned alive? I mean, dude, listen, anti-imperialism, like true, genuine anti-imperialist sentiment is one of the, there are a couple fucking attitudes in America, in the American population, that are so powerful that it doesn't matter. Even the progressive causes, even the progressive fucking people will rip your throat out. Anti-imperialist sentiment is one of those things. Obviously, I'm not talking about like near history or anti-imperialist sentiments when you're describing America's like contemporary history, but like actual things that America is engaging in right now. If you have an anti-imperialist point of view on it, you will get fucking attacked like I did for the past month or so. People are fucking losing their shit. They go so far, they lose their minds. Like they fucking start saying, why don't they come after you? What do you mean, why don't they come after me? Are you fucking kidding me? They said I was a Hitler supporter on Twitter for like 2 days. There is no more aggressive thing that you could say to someone who is anti-war than like, you're literally a defender of Hitler. So, oh my God, you weren't attacked for being anti-imperialist? I 1000% was attacked for an anti-imperialist, a anti-imperialist position of having a anti-NATO perspective, okay? And talking about how much the State Department and the mainstream media has beefed up whipped up people into a fucking frenzy. And not even people, like not even real people, just people who hyper focus on this shit. Just people who hyper focus on this stuff, because I think only 26% of the country is a fan of involving ourselves in Ukraine. Yeah, people said I was doing appeasement and I was Neville Chamberlain. Okay, so we have been hearing this shit for a month now, man. Active listeners are aware this was your take since the beginning. Exactly. You've trended 10 for... Also, every single time I've been fucking canceled is because I've said something that goes against the, like, the overwhelming America is actually exceptionalist attitude. So, don't ever say that. That is not even true. Like, that 1000%. The other one... The other thing is criminal justice. Americans literally do not value... Americans do not value prisoners as human beings. They think prisoners are fucking... They are deserving of like the worst kinds of punishments for their crimes, no matter what the crimes are. Or they think all of these fucking... You're not being attacked for... You're being attacked not for anti-imperialism. You're being attacked for saying the invasion was a CIA talking point. The invasion, as the way that the State Department said the invasion was going to happen, that is still yet to happen, is 1000% America fucking saber-rattling by utilizing the media. And it's not me who says this. People have come out, like Julia Ioffe, or however the fuck you say her last name, has come out and literally said and admitted misinformation, trafficking misinformation about Russia is a part of our strategy against Russia. Those people are being celebrated. And that's why you don't see America fucking all of a sudden changing anything about their fucking way of dealing with Russia from last week, when Russia has put boots inside of Ukrainian borders. Bro, you called Crimea Russian land? That's propaganda. I watch you do it. Stop crying. What the fuck? Because I do believe that. I do believe that the people living in Crimea want to be a part of Russia. And by the way, you know who else believes that? Motherfuckers that live in Crimea. So it doesn't matter what your point of view is on this subject. It's just the truth. Okay? It's deeply, deeply, deeply fucking frustrating to regularly mention this over and over again when it is a thing that is real. Okay? I don't know what else to tell you. You can say it's blood and soil. You can say whatever the fuck, but you know, the facts on the ground do not care about your fucking feelings. Bro, then it's the same thing as Kashmir. The people living in Kashmir are Muslim and Pakistani. What the fuck are you saying? It's the same thing as Kashmir. What do you mean? Despite the immigration, the forcible fucking immigration from India into that region, the people living there are Muslim. And also, the people living in Kashmir are not exactly welcoming. Are not exactly welcoming of India coming in and fucking assassinating or imprisoning, shutting off their internet, imprisoning their fucking leaders, shutting off their electricity. Okay? Whereas the people in Crimea, like if there was actually a fucking study conducted, a poll conducted in Kashmir, And they were like, oh yeah, we're totally fine. We want this. We want India to fucking take over. We want it. We want India. We love India. Okay, they're not harming us. Then you could have maybe a take. And as far as the referendum goes, it doesn't matter what the fucking referendum said in Crimea. Yes, the referendum in Crimea that was done under annexation. The referendum done in Crimea was done during annexation, so you can say that it's like faulty, it's bullshit, whatever. But the demographics of Crimea are overwhelmingly Russian. The Crimean Navy became a part of the Russian Navy. Like, there is no other situation in the world where people willingly fucking join the Russian military, the force of the fucking oppressor, like willingly, okay? They speak the language. They wanted to be a part of it. They historically wanted to be a fucking part of it. And polls showed that reality over and over again. And yet this is still a conversation that we are having in this chat. Half my family lives in Crimea. I was there months after the annexation. I didn't see a single person upset or protesting receiving a Russian passport. My uncle wore a suit and shit. Anarchists defending the borders of a capitalist nation state while denying the sovereignty of the people within it. I know. It's a very, very weird fucking take. It's really fucking strange, man. It is like... And it's always anarchists too. It's always anarchists that like are pro-NATO anarchists. They're like ACAB. Also NATO, best cab. Okay. Anarchists defending the territorial sovereignty and the constitution of Ukraine against the wishes of the people living in those borders is a really ridiculous fucking take. It's just... It is once again showing me that if you are an extremely online anarchist, you're not fucking an anarchist. You're just a rad lib who wants to have some kind of radical, aesthetically radical politics. That's it.
A top Putin project that would carry natural gas from Russia to Europe. President Biden is also moving some U.S. troops already based in Europe to the Baltic states in an effort to support NATO allies that border Russia to the west.
Let me be clear. These are totally defensive moves on our part. We have no intention of fighting Russia.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken said talks with his Russian counterpart are off until Russian aggression abates.
We will not allow Russia to claim the pretense of diplomacy. At the same time, it accelerates its march down the path of conflict and war.
Starting today, the U.S. is also going to be imposing sanctions on specific Russian oligarchs. And the U.K. is taking similar steps. But Ukraine's foreign minister wants the U.S. to go even further. He says that Putin and his inner circle should be targeted with sanctions, too. In a tweet, he said, hit more, hit hard, hit now. Nate?
Participating our foreign correspondent James Longman for the latest from Moscow.
I gotta pee. I'll be back in a second.
Putin has weathered sanctions like the ones imposed so far before.
Well, that's absolutely right, George. Well, today is Defender of the Fatherland Day here in Russia, and Vladimir Putin is taking the opportunity to double down on the rhetoric about defending Russia from foreign powers. He was at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier here in Moscow this morning, and the sanctions imposed by Western countries have been met with yet more bluster. Government officials here shrugging off their possible impact, saying they've been sanction-proofing the economy for months in preparation. They also know just how much the rest of the world relies on Russian gas and how Moscow can use the current energy crisis that a lot of countries are facing around the world this winter to its advantage. Former President Medvedev has been taunting Europeans, saying soon you'll be paying $2,000 for gas. But the suspension of that important gas pipeline to Germany was a step that not many people expected and would mean a major hit to Russia. Putin has been appealing to the emotions of the Russian people about the dangers of a genocide in Ukraine, and that wild claim, he's repeated it again yesterday, about a possible US-enabled nuclear attack. He doesn't need public support to wage war, but his system relies on the appearance of democracy, and that's why we've continued to see these false flag reports really stepping up this morning. George?
Yeah, the propaganda war is intense. Okay, James, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here.
Come on,
With
Robin
more with
Roberts.
Ukraine, Charlie D'Agata is there for us today. He visited a factory.
Gallup poll done after the annexation and referendum of Crimea, of both Crimea and the totality of Ukraine. You will have to download the PDF file to view it, though. It's a good comprehensive review of the situation. Post-Maidan Ukraine opinion polls. I don't want to download it. Do you think sanctions ever work in this sort of situation? I don't know. I think sanctions are a way to appear tolerant and more civil, while still enacting brutality upon a group of individuals. It's collective punishment. Sanctions are collective punishment for the crimes of leadership in a country. That's why people say sanctions are an act of war. In this circumstance, the sanctions that we are talking about are hyper targeted, but also on top of that, like they are impactful. Of course they're impactful, but they will be marginally impactful upon the citizens of Russia. It depends on where the sanctions go going forward in the situation. Obviously, on top of that, having some sort of fucking we have to shut off a part of our brains to feel like sanctions are justifiable against Russia in this circumstance, especially when they're being done by the United States of America. I'm not anti-sanctions across the board. For example, I am in favor of sanctioning Saudi Arabia. I'm in favor of putting sanctions on American allies in general, Saudi Arabia being one, Israel being another one, right? These are absolutely sanctions that are well-deserving and would be way more impactful because they're our allies, okay? For literally, by the way, for Israel, you could just use the template for Ukraine and use it on Israel. You could literally be like, listen, taking over, annexing territory that doesn't belong to you, that's crazy. There you go, boom, sanctions. That'll never happen, of course, even though Israel has annexed Golan Heights, which Israel has no fucking historical ties to. And if you were to poll the people living in Golan Heights, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be like, oh, we love that Israel has taken over this territory. Okay? So, but unfortunately, the sanctions are more impactful to the average citizen and harm the average citizen when it's done to nations that aren't our allies and nations that are historically poor and powerless. Okay? So that is precisely what's going on here. But in Russia, it's a little bit different than sanctions on Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and numerous other countries. We're talking about sanctions on a country that is also powerful in and of itself, and these sanctions are not actually ones that would diminish the quality of life of the people that live there. Still, I mean, it will make their lives marginally worse. But as far as I understand, the current sanctions that we have applied are baby sanctions, very targeted. A couple fucking oligarchs here and there, banking, and sanctions targeted at like the central bank, which is bad. But other than that, it's mostly just like, hey, more will come if you do this. Anyway. I think it's more complex. It's not intuitive to understand how much damage sanctions can do. They often literally starve people to death, and that's the most cruel form of death by far. Yes, but sanctioning Russia is not the same as Iraq, is what I'm saying. The sanctions on Iraq demonstrably led to what, like 500,000 fucking children dying of starvation. Like that's unimaginable cruelty. We did that, by the way. No, not Iran, Iraq. I'm talking about Iraq. Okay? In the 90s, not like our active boots on the ground military warfare. So like, and famously, what's her face said that was justifiable. That is just the cost of doing business. And, And I do. Madeleine Albright said that, yeah. And for the, I mean, we have sanctions on Yemen too. We're imposing more sanctions on Yemen. The U.S. has imposed new sanctions on alleged Houthi financiers, though as usual, the evidence is scant, especially the Houthis are effectively the government in the vast majority of the country. As the U.S. knows full well, this will impede civilian imports. Same with Gaza. Yeah, the media uncurious about Iraq's policy effects there or here. We think the price is worth it. Leslie Stahl asked, Madeleine Albright, we have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it? Secretary of State Madeleine Albright famously on 60 Minutes in 1996 said, I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it. That is the reality of America. And when you and when you take a weird, like, black and white, Putin bad guy, America civilizing force against the brutalizing oppressor and doing better imperialism than the other imperial force in power here, when you take an approach like that, you're siding with that attitude. If you don't recognize that, like, America has never done an action, has never engaged in a single fucking has never engaged in a single piece of action that is not, that's Anna Kasparian's buddy. Oh, shut the fuck up, Tara Genome. You fucking idiot. That's not Anna Kasparian's buddy. I do think it's like, you know, I don't like that she interviewed her and had like this, you know, it took a photo with her or some shit. But like, they're not like, stop being fucking weird, okay? Don't be like that fucking deranged person on the internet, okay? Yeah, I'm just defending her because we worked together. Fox News just interviewed a Ukrainian activist named Serhiy Sternenko. Sternenko is the former head of the Odessa branch of the right sector, a neo-Nazi group. Sternenko is suspected of murder. The U.S. media is openly whitewashing Ukraine's far right. I wonder why. I wonder how. I wonder what the purpose is. That the American government, once again, has found itself completely supporting, in a bipartisan capacity, Ukrainian far-right elements. So interesting. So interesting. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why it's happening. Is there a video of this, by the way? I would love to watch that. I grew up in Iraq. During sanctions, my family used to share one piece of bread between 7 of us and an egg if we're lucky. Yeah. Can you expand on that instead of vague memeing? Expand on what? Foreignpolicy.com. Oh, yeah, they are. Foreignpolicy.com is a very popular neoliberal outlet, but they do sometimes have like interesting realpolitik takes.
European countries are preparing for a wave of refugees as Ukrainians brace for a possible full-scale war with Russia. An activist on the ground in Kiev fought against Russian militants when they tried to invade Ukraine in 2014.
Like, what's that? There's that black dude in Ukraine right now that's like doing coverage out of Ukraine that everybody loves and is talking about. He literally has like photos with fucking these guys, okay, with the right sector people. Being like, oh, right sector in the house. Like, if you're in fucking Ukraine as an American, okay? If you're in Ukraine as an American working alongside the American State Department, okay? Not saying that you're CIA or anything like that. Maybe you just legitimately believe it, okay? Not Lester Holt. The other dude. He's like famous on Twitter now. Terrell J. Starr, yeah. Host of Black Diplomats. This dude. Terrell Jermaine Starr. I mean, he's at the Atlantic Council, okay? Like, if you're in the Atlantic Council, you routinely find yourself surrounded by these right-wing reactionary forces, but you're supposed to be the democratizing force there, right? You're doing civil society shit. You're fucking out there helping, you know?